Hi everyone, welcome to the NCE review for the NCE 5-minute videos. We are under clinical focus, and today we are in subheading Z, racism, discrimination, and oppression. So it's important to understand that although these terms you may have heard of, as it comes to the field of mental health, these terms are very applicable because mental health clinicians, by and large, do not reflect the demographics of this country. And there's a reason for that, right? Historically, there's been groups that did not have access to higher learning, and because of that, now you have generations where certain groups have had access and certain groups have not, and that has created inequalities, and those inequalities are visible today. So you're having a gap in what we call mental health care because of the inequalities that have historically been a part of society and this country. So, more specifically to this subtopic, let's talk about some of these words. So, racism. In the mid 20th century, it was very overt, right? You could tell there was hate groups. You could tell there was lynchings. You could tell there was blatant discrimination, right? Certain groups could do certain things, other groups could not, right? The whole idea was, we're equal, but we're separate, right? I don't want to commingle with this person because they look a certain way. Because of the different laws, the civil rights, the passage of some of the federal policies, as well as movements in schools, the integration movement, that by and large is now seen as socially unacceptable. But that doesn't mean that all of that went away. That just means that now it has morphed into something less obvious, right? So when we talk about racism now, it's not necessarily overt, right? You don't see lynchings, you don't see blatant discrimination. Now what you see is things that aren't necessarily intended, but because of historical implications, and even unintentional things people just take for granted, then it becomes an unintentional or often not very explicit form of systemic racism. So when we talk about systemic racism, it's the emphasis of the involvement of the whole system, and often all the systems, right? If we're talking about mental health and we're talking about how white clinicians dominate the profession, then because of that dominance, they may not take other groups into consideration, right? Because a person is in the majority, they may focus on things that are interested, let's say, in research and relevant for them. So they may not understand how cultural dynamics differentiate within different groups. Also, structural racism. It emphasizes the roles of structure, right? Laws, policy, institutional practices, and entrenched norms that are systems scaffolding, right? So for example, if I work at a university and I am monolingual, then I may not take the considerations of a bilingual individual because I just all the policies within this institution are in English, so I may not even have the need, or may even say, if someone's bilingual, they have to work with other people that speak English because I cannot supervise them. So I am imposing my own limits onto that individual without considering some of those implications. So those are just some things to keep in mind whenever you're talking about racism, discrimination, and oppression.